Alright guys, so today it should be Friday. Should have used yesterday to go through and work through passage number 2 in the science portion as a review and answer your questions. And then today I wanted you to watch this video to go through your answers and make sure that you got them all correct. So we're looking at page 624 here. I'm going to skip over the intro. Remember, you only really read things if you have to, if you don't understand what's going on in the tables or the answers to the questions. So I'm going to start by looking at table 1 here, see if we can draw any arrows. I am going to glance up above just to make sure I understand what's going on here because the description is not great inside the table. It says the number of cases observed on day, and then it gives the days for 2 different groups. So I'm just going to glance up and make sure I know what's going on here. We're looking at 40 chickens split up into 2 groups. Group 1 was fed a diet of polished rice. Group 2 was fed a diet of polished rice as well as vitamin B1 supplement. And it shows the number of diseased chickens, so that's kind of helpful, after each day over the course of the week. Okay, so as the days are increasing here, it looks like the number of diseased chickens does seem to increase for group 1, but it's decreasing for group 2, so I can draw my arrows. Experiments 2. And then for table 2, it just looks like we have different groups, and then what was fed to each group. Table 3, the number of cases observed on each day, and then I'm assuming it would still be the number that are diseased. And so I can look to see here, we can look to see what's going on. So as the days go on, it looks like for group 3 we are decreasing. Group 4, it's increasing. This looks like it comes up and comes back down. This one goes down, comes back up, so something like that. Okay. So here we go. Number 1, in experiment 2, in which group was the number of diseased chickens reduced by exactly half between day 1 and day 7, and what diet were those chickens fed? So if I jump back, I am looking for, this is experiment 2, so I'm looking at table 3 here, and I want to see which group ended up with half of the diseased chickens from day 1 to day 7. So it looks like here it goes from 16 to 8, and that's the only one where it is cut in half. So it's going to be group 3. Okay, so we can eliminate A and D. And then I just need to look back and see what group 3 was fed. So I look back here, group 3, look at table 2, they were fed bottled water, vitamin B1 supplement, and the polished rice. And so that should give me C. Number 2, the scientists predicted that providing the chickens with a vitamin B1 supplement, tap water, and polished rice would lead to a greater reduction in the number of diseased chickens than would providing tap water and polished rice alone. Are the results of experiment 2 consistent with this prediction? Okay, and if you just glance at all the answers, there's 2 yeses, 2 no's, and they are looking at group 5 and 6 for every single answer. So I'm going to jump back here, and I want to look at group 5 and 6. Okay, so if I look at what they ate, group 5 ate all 3, and then group 6 just did the tap water and the polished rice. So I am using the right groups to compare. And so if I look at 5 and 6, I want to see what happened for the number of diseased chickens. So number 5, it started by going up, but then it did go back down. With group 6, it went down, but then it ended up coming back up. And so if I, again, look at the question here, we're trying to see if giving all 3 led to a greater reduction in the number of chickens. And so the answer is yes, having all 3 did help. Okay. And if we look at the explanations why, it was because group 5 saw a greater reduction in diseased chickens than did group 6. Number 3, the results for which two groups should be compared to determine how a vitamin B1 supplement affects the number of diseased chickens among chickens that were provided bottled water. So when we're looking at our groups here, we want to see which ones were given bottled water first, and then with the ones that had bottled water, which one also had a vitamin B supplement. So again, if I glance back here, I'm going to look. So it looks like groups 3 and 4 are the ones that had the bottled water. And so out of those two, and that group 3 had the B1 supplement. So those are the two groups that we want to compare. So our answer should be A, group 3 and group 4. Number 4, it's discovered that the scientist had not controlled for the type of bedding used by the chickens in experiment 2. The chickens in groups 3 and 5 had straw bedding, while the chickens in groups 4 and 6 had cedar chip bedding. If the scientist wanted to conduct an experiment to see the effects of bedding, water type, and vitamin B1 supplement on the number of diseased chickens, how many groups of chickens would be needed for this experiment? Okay, so we don't even really need to look at the tables here. This is kind of setting up its own thing and figuring out how many groups we would need. We have 3 different things we're looking at, right? The effects of bedding, the water type, and the vitamin B1 supplement. So this is kind of going back to what we did with the math problems a couple weeks ago with counting up how many options we have. So we have 3 different things that we're looking at, and we need to count up how many different options do we have for each one. So for the effects of bedding, they gave us 2 different types of bedding. The water type, I think it would just be, well, if we look back at the table, there's only bottled water or tap water, so that would be 2. And then vitamin B supplement, the options would be yes or no, so there would be 2 options there. So if you remember, when we do this, we end up multiplying these numbers together to give us 8 total different arrangements, or in this case, groups that we would need to be able to run this experiment. Number 5, in experiment 2, among the chickens that are given tap water, a vitamin B1 supplement, and polished rice, the number of diseased chickens over the course of the week does what? So if you look back at table 2, we're looking for which group was given these 3 things. If you look, that ends up being group 5. And so then if you look back at table 3, what did we say happened with group 5? Well, it went up and then it went back down. So this would be D. It increased, but then it decreased. Number 6, based on the results of experiment 1, if the scientists continued the experiment for 2 more weeks, the number of diseased chickens in group 2 would most likely be closest to what? So I'm just going to jot this down real quick. For group 2, if I look at the days here, so it was 16 chickens started, and then 15, and then it went down to 12, and then 8. So this is the number of days, right? So this would be 1 week later, okay? It seems like it's decreasing the whole time, and so if we got all the way up to, what would that be, day 21, the question is what number would this be? But if you look at the options, I mean, it's decreasing, so it should be less than 8. All these 3 are 8 or more, so the only answer that really makes sense would be F. And then the last one, number 7. The scientist owns 150 total chickens. Based on the information in the passage and tables 1 and 3, approximately what % of her chickens were likely disease-free prior to the start of the experiment? So for this one, I went back and looked at table 1. So we saw above in that paragraph that each of the groups started out with 20 chickens each. And on day 1, it says the number that were diseased was 15 and 16. So I'm just going to use 15. So 15 out of 20, and it's going to be, roughly here, because the other one has 16, but about 15 out of 20 were diseased. That is 75% were diseased, which means 25% were not diseased. Okay. If I look at table 3, again, it's 20 chickens in each group, and all of them start out at either 15 or 16 chickens. So this trend continues. And so they say that we can assume that this is true of all of her chickens. Okay, so it says that she has 150 total. We're assuming that these percentages are going to be the same, or roughly the same for all of those chickens. And so that's why our answer would be B, 20 to 25%.